how to complete a PSEAT form for Health Canada. We're talking about the Protocol Safety and Efficacy Assessment template for a clinical trial application, or CTA, that we have to prepare and send to Health Canada for approval. A CTA, again, as we know, is an application to have the authorization to test a new drug in humans. So here I'm just going to choose an example of an already registered clinical trial that you can see on the right side of your screen. And I just went to clinicaltrials.gov, which is the official repository of clinical trials. So all of the clinical trials that are taking place, at least, of course, one site on the US soil has to be registered in this website. So this is the clinicaltrials.gov, maintained by the National Library of Medicine, but of course by FDA. So what I did is that I just chose a product. Here, I just wanted to choose a product which is a combination product. So this is epinephrine plus a puffer. So epinephrine spraying. And I'm just going to, I would say, write a PSEAT, or a Protocol Safety and Efficacy Assessment template for conducting this study in the US, in Canada. So I am using an already existing registered product on the clinicaltrials.gov with all of the information that is publicly available on the right side of your screen. And on the left side of your screen, I already went to Health Canada website. I searched for the CTA, or clinical trial application, web page. I went on the web page. I searched for the forms that I have to prepare for the clinical trial application in Canada, and I found one of the forms, which is the PSEAT, or Protocol Safety and Efficacy Assessment template. So now in front of me, on the left, I have the form to complete. On the right, I have the information from the clinical trial that I am now going to find and copy and then paste them into my PSEAT. So the first thing is proprietary name of course, drug product. So here, the proprietary name of the product, of course, is epinephrine, okay? By the way, you can also look into not just the study details, but also the researcher view. And in this case, it gives you maybe much easier interface to search for, okay? So here, this is the proprietary name. We are going to see it has just epinephrine, so we just write epinephrine. Yes, it doesn't have it, so I'm just searching for that. It's just epinephrine spraying. So the non-proprietary form here, this is going to be the generic name, which is again epinephrine. Now, you may have already a drug that has a proprietary name and a generic name. In this case, you will have to put the proprietary name here on the, again, case A, and the generic name here. You can find the product monograph as well, or even look into the product label, and then you are going to be able to find out what is the proprietary name and what is a generic name. Now, for the sponsor, we're going to see who is the sponsor, okay? So we look into, again here, the first submitted, the contact information, the primary current. Again, like you, I'm just looking into who is the sponsor. And if I cannot again find it, I'm just going to just do the search and then to write sponsor here in this. So here, I don't see the sponsor. In this case, the sponsor may be the investigator. So I'm now going to look into who is the investigator. So here, the investigator or the contact name, I may find it. So usually, when we are in a regulatory affairs department, we have access to this. But if this form is just for an exercise, in this case, you can just write a hypothetic name. Okay, so anyways, for exercises that we always have in different colleges and universities, we always give these forms to students, asking them to search for the information on, again, a registered product, a clinical trial, and then to find the information. So for this case, the study that I found, I couldn't find a sponsor in this um, view. Maybe if I look at the study detail, I may find a sponsor somewhere. I don't find. Maybe I'm going to look at the contacts and locations, and I'm going to see there's only one contact, which is Medical Center of Digestive Disease of Second African Hospital. Okay, in this case, this may be just a again the investigator who is the sponsor. In this case, that's what I assume. So I'm going to write down here, again, a hypothetic name. Now for the dosage form, you are going now to search in your, again, study if you have any dosage. Usually we put the dosage as well. So we are going to write down what's the effect of which, which concentration. So here, for example, you see, I can see the dosage here. So patients, they receive sublingual nitroglycerin, receive this, and then they are going to, they receive that as well, and then they are going to use the epinephrine plate on the papilla. So we can also find out the dosage form. If not, again, you can always find the information on the product monograph or on the product label. Then for the strength, this is, again, the dosage, I would say the form and the strength. You're going to find this out. If you don't have it, you can just leave it blank, or you're going to write a hypothetic, I would say, strength. The route of administration, so here, this is nasal, okay? So this is a spray. So if this is a spray, of course, we call that here, sprayed on the papilla. So the route of administration is already here. So we are going to write that down here. Again, this is just for one example of the clinical trial which is registered. Regulatory affairs professionals, they have to be able to find the valid source of document and then to find out all of the information that they need in order to complete the regulatory documents and, of course, the forms that you are seeing on the left side of your screen. Then talking about the proposed indication, here we are looking into the indication. So we are going to read what is the study overview, and we are going to see again why we are using this product. So we are going to find out the indication for epinephrine in our case, of course, which is a spray. Okay. Then for the investigator's brochure, if you have the investigator's brochure, you are going to write this down. If you don't have it, you can, again, if this is an exercise, you can always, I would say, write a hypothetical date. Don't forget that the investigator's brochure is a document that will become later when we go to the market, the product monograph in Canada, or the product label in the US, or it becomes a summary of product characteristics in Europe. So this investigator brochure, if it's applicable, we write it down, but if we don't have it, okay, you can leave it blank or put a hypothetical test if this is for an exercise. Then for the contact information, we are going to find out the contact information in this again here, for example. So the contact and location, here we have this name, we have this phone number, and we have this email. So we understand that by searching for the contact information here, we are going to use the contact information which is already registered. Now, you may see in some cases, a study doesn't have a contact information, or this is just, again, goes to an email, or they just say this is confidential. These things happen. In this case, if again you are completing the PSEAT for a test or for I would say exercise, you can just put the hypothetical names. But if not, if you can find, of course, real contact names, you will need to write the contact names that you can find on clinicaltrials.gov. Now, for the clinical trial title and protocol number or the code is always given on the top. So we have the code which is here. So on the top of the, when you are, again, when you are submitting the synopsis of a clinical trial protocol to clinicaltrials.gov website, it will give you automatically again a protocol number or the code. So here in section 2, you will have to write down the trial title, which is here, and then you will need to write the protocol number, which is, of course, here as per the clinicaltrials.gov. You also need to copy this, the URL, and to add that URL in this box in the protocol summary section. Now, talking about the background and the rationale, you always have the background and the rationale, which is written on the clinicaltrials.gov as well. This is the brief summary. So here you're going to, of course, read the information. If you need to add more information, you're going to just add more. But this is the information that you have to add into the background and rationale section. So we go to the clinicaltrials.gov, we search for the study overview section, we go to the brief summary section, and then we are going to read and use the information in this section, and then to now complete the box on the PSEAT document related to the background and rationale. Then we have the trial objectives. So the objectives of the trial are again on the clinicaltrials.gov. So we are going to look into the outcomes. Also, we have study outcomes. Okay. So for the trial objectives, we are going to look into, or reading, of course, what we are meeting. So you have the outcome measures. These are the outcome measures that you can see for this trial. You will need to read the information and then to complete the box on the PSEAT form, which is about the trial objective. So you can find that in the outcome measures. Then for the study design and the duration, again, you have to explore, like any regulatory professional, you have to explore the information, the document that you have. And now you're going to look into the design. So that's a prevention. It's a randomized, that's again the design as well. It's also parallel assignment. And it's again, it's an open label study. And when I look into what else I need to see, it's about the duration. So you're going to look into the duration of this study that is also written in here usually. So we are going to see when the duration is on the right side. So you see the study start date, the study end date. So you're going to the calculation for this one is about 2 years. So the exercise of completing the PSEAT form is very important because it's training the eyes of a regulatory professional. It's allowing us to look into a document, going back and forth, and being able to find out the information that we need by using an already published document. So continuing with the PSEAT form for the CTA application for Health Canada, we're also going to look into the, again, total number of sites and number of Canadian sites. Now, of course, if this is a CTA, we need to have minimum a Canadian site as well. So if this is for an exercise, obviously, if you're a student, you will need to have found some studies on a clinical trial for this type of product with at least one site in Canada, okay? If, again, you are a professional and you are, again, working on the PSEAT, obviously, you already have this information in your regulatory files. So we are going to look into the number of sites. For this, again, we go to the contacts and locations, and we're going to see that for this one, for example, there's only one study, which is in China. Obviously, since I'm working on the PSEAT, again, this example this is just for a Chinese study, but I have to also look into other sites. And if I don't have any site, in this case, if again I am working in a company and we would like to do the same study in Canada, I'm just going to write down that we have also one site in Canada, and this is related to the same, I would say, study outcomes. Then, so the list of numbers sorry, the list of sites and the number of sites would be 2 in this case, or one, sorry, 1 in Canada, 1 in China. Then for a list of investigators, we also find out in the contacts and locations. So for the contacts, we see that we just have one person. We don't know if the person is an investigator or not. This is why, again, if this is an exercise for completing a PC document, we are just going to put the hypothetic, again, information. If not, a regulatory affairs professional has access to the list of investigators, because we have a department that may be called medical affairs or clinical research, where they do have all of the information related to the studies. So a regulatory affairs professional can always contact those departments and get the um, information. Now, the other section is the sample size. The sample size is the number of patients. So we are going to see if we can find, of course, in this example that I chose, if we have the sample size or the study population. So participation criteria, I'm just going to look into whether or not we have, again, the number of patients. Here we have the inclusion and exclusion criteria, but it doesn't seem to give me any number. This is okay. This is the way that they enter their information, so I'm not going to, again, criticize them, of course not. So for the, again, the number of patients or sample size, again, put a hypothetical number if this is for an exercise. If not, in a real case scenario, in a real life, you do have access to the sample size or the patient's sample size. The patient population, which is the next text box, is related to the total number or total estimated number of all of the patients having a specific disease condition and who may benefit from this study. And of course, the product when it's going to be on the market. So we can have, for example, in Canada, we have about 2 to 3 million people with diabetes. So the patient population, if that was for a medical device combination product with a drug with insulin, for example, the patient population would be 3 million people in Canada. But the sample size is the number of the, I would say, of the that we choose as participants, so that that number is going to be statistically significant when we are going to do our quantitative statistical analysis. So we may have 3 million Canadians having diabetes in Canada, but when we are going to test our product, we just need to have 300 patients. So the sample size of 300 patients in order to test a product and, of course, to, again, have the statistical results significant. Then we have another section in the form PSEAT, which is the inclusion criteria. For the inclusion criteria, we are going to go back to the clinicaltrials.gov, to the web page that is showing the clinical trial that we chose related to our product. And here again, I chose a clinical trial on a combination product, which is again the combination of a drug and a medical device. And then I'll search for the eligibility criteria. So the inclusion criteria is here, and I just look into the inclusion criteria. So I'm going to just write these criteria in the box in the PSEAT form. Then the next text box for the PSEAT form is the exclusion criteria. I go back to my protocol, and then I'm going to search for exclusion criteria, and then I'm going to now copy the exclusion criteria and paste it into the text box for this purpose on the PSEAT form for Health Canada. Now we are looking into the drug formulation. When we scroll up, we are going to see that we do have the formulation, which is a spray. So we already have that. Now for the dosage regimen, we are going to see, as you remember, we couldn't find the dosage exactly. So for this study, we couldn't, of course, use this. We would need to search from other sources the dose that has been used for in this study. But again, this is for, again, a case where you're working on an example, so a training for completing the PSEAT form. If not, in a real life, real world, when you're in, as again, working as a regulatory affairs specialist, you will have access to the information related to the clinical trials, and even more, you're going to have access to the clinical trial, because this is your company, so you have access to the companies. For here, I'm just using an example of a published protocol synopsis that may not have all of the information that we need to complete the PSEAT form. But again, what I'm doing here is just for the sake of the exercise. Now, the washout period, this is a period during which we stop giving the drug treatment to patients, and we are going to wait until we don't have the molecules of that drug in the body. Now, in a protocol, we may have a washout period, or we may not have a washout period. If it's the case, of course, we are going to write it down, complete the form. If it's not the case, again, we just leave it blank, or we write down not applicable. But again, it will depend on the protocol that you're going to choose. Then we also have the pre-study screening and baseline evaluation. Here, usually in the synopsis in the clinicaltrials.gov, we have studies where we are telling us what are the pre-study screening and baseline evaluations. So I am inviting you, of course, to choose, I would say, a study where you have all of this information and you're able to access the pre-study and the baseline evaluation or screening. Now, something else which is important, sorry, is that in clinicaltrials.gov, you also have studies where the authors, they also share with you other documents related to the study. So you can also search for those studies as well. Then the next text box is about the treatment or the visits. For this, again, we have to have the study protocol. So sometimes we can find a study here, and we can also search for, I'm going to do that for you now. We can also now search for the protocol for that. So I can just go to the protocol and then to write the study, and then to look into whether or not I will be able to find this. So here you see, I can find the information on the PubMed, so epinephrine sprayed of the papilla. So I just searched for the information on internet, and this will now give me the abstract on a published article related to this drug. Now I see that they say that we randomize the patients to have 10 milliliters of either 0.02% epinephrine or saline. So here, that's the dose that we were searching in the PSEAT form. So now you see that we can access to some published literature, or we can always access to some information related to the protocol itself. So now what I did again is that I just copied the title of the study protocol or the study title, and then I went on an internet search engine, and then I searched for any publication that could give me some information related to that study. You can also see that here we have 370 patients. This information was not provided in clinicaltrial.gov that we saw, but we can see that in the publication we have this information as well. So we are going to add this information into then this the PSEAT form as well. Now, we are also missing the list of investigators. So we are going to see that, of course, this is a list of investigators that we can see here. So the exercise of completing the PSEAT is training, is a training purpose, of course, as well for training the eyes of regulatory affairs professionals by searching and looking into different documents from the valid sources on internet. One of them is PubMed, the one that we are seeing. One of them is clinicaltrials.gov. And again, if this form, the PSEAT, is used as an exercise, this is, again, is applicable to any clinical trial that we can find on clinicaltrials.gov. And then we can always do the exercise of looking into what information is required in the PSEAT form for Health Canada and what information we can find on clinicaltrials.gov or on PubMed or on any other valid source of documentation. Okay, so now for the treatment visits, again, we are going to go again back to the clinicaltrials.gov and we are going to look into how the study has been done. So we looked into the eligibility criteria, and then we are looking into the study plan. And then we are going to see, okay, how the study has been done. We see that we have two arms. We have the participant group arm, and we have the, again, intervention treatments. So we have the participant group arm, we have two. We have the experimental group, so it's epinephrine sprayed on the papilla. And then we have the active comparator, which is the saline sprayed on the papilla. So these are two different arms, and we also have interventions and treatments. So by reading this information, you will be able now to complete the information related to the treatment and assessments. Now for the visits, if you don't have the number of visits, usually we can see that you can always search for the number of visits by looking into the article. Or if not, you can always look into other documentation that you can find on internet. Can even find the protocol associated with this study as well, if it has been published, of course. Now, for the concomitant medication, is any medication allowed to be used by any patient during the clinical trial? So here again, if the information is available, of course, on clinicaltrials.gov, we are going to write this down. If not, we can always look into any publication, and in a real world, we do have access to the clinical trial protocol. And in this case, we can again write down also what is the concomitant medication. And the same thing that I told you, the same information applies to the rescue medication risk management, to the premature withdrawal discussion criteria, where the information is already in the research protocol. Now, coming back again to the PSEAT form, you do have several other boxes, such as efficacy variables and analysis, safety variables and analysis, and statistical analysis. So here again, this information may be written already in the clinicaltrials.gov for the published synopsis. If not, you can find it in any type of publication from valid source of information. And again, in the real world, we do have access to the study protocol, and we can write that information into the PSEAT form. Now, coming back to the PSEAT form, As I already mentioned, the protocol safety and efficacy assessment template is a form that is required by Health Canada. And this is one of the forms among other forms that must be completed and then submitted to Health Canada within the package that we call a clinical trial application. Indeed, when you are testing a new product in Canada or a product with a new indication, you need to ask for the authorization to test your drug in human subjects. For this, you have to go to Health Canada website, searching for the CTA or clinical trial application web page, and then you are going to look into the requirements in order to prepare the submission package for the CTA. So today we have been looking into again the form protocol safety and efficacy assessment template, which is one of those forms that you have to complete and to attach to your application for a clinical trial application that you will submit to Health Canada. So thank you so much again for again your attendance. I hope that this explanation was useful for everyone. Thank you.